Right, so we finished the first section by talking about octaves. And we described in the documentation how the octave was, in the mean tempered system, was divided into 12 intervals. So it sounds like this if you play all intervals. Which isn't the sound of the scale that you learn as a child, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And we said the reason that it sounds like that, the scale you learnt, is because if you play on one string, you see that it's a combination of either two steps on the fretboard or one step. Two steps, two steps, two steps, two steps, two steps, two steps, one step at the end. So it's this combination of either a whole tone or a half tone or two tones, which gives the name to diatonic, di meaning two. So what we're going to do is use the scale of C major to find out now the relationship between any note in the scale, for example C, and any note in our first case, a third above it, C, D, E. So let's return to the virtual classroom. Right, back to the virtual classroom, and here we see laid out my diatonic scale, which has got this series of whole steps and half steps, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and that pattern would be the same no matter where you start on the fretboard. Of course, if we started up here, we'd run out of string. So what we need to do is go across strings to play the diatonic major scale. So the pattern is W is whole tone, W, W, H, half tone, W, 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 H. And these are the intervals, so the steps between. So let's go down here. And we'll start our pattern on this C here, which is on the 5th string, 3rd fret to 5th string. So a whole step from there goes up to the D, which is the 5th fret of the 5th string. To play an E, I cross over strings to the 4th string here, and I play the E on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. The F is a semitone up, and the G is a whole tone from F, 2 frets. So now to play the A, we shift to the 3rd string, 2nd fret. Then the A to B is a whole tone. And the B to C is a half tone. Starting on C. So what we're going to do is construct from this pattern our intervals between C and E, D and F, E and G, F and A, G and B, A and C, and so on. So from that pattern, so here we see the interval on the stave between C and E. That's a third, C, D and E. A third of some sort. So what does it sound like? Now we're going to investigate the sound of major and minor thirds. To do so, I'm going to start with the beginning of my interval of a third to be C, which appears here on the stave. Now I'm going to play this E, which is on the 4th string, 2nd fret. And this is what they sound like together. Now, if I lower this E by 1 fret, a half tone, listen to the sound. You're listening to the sound of the difference between a major and minor third. It's one of the most important sounds in Western music. This change of just 1 half tone, or a fret in the case of a guitar, makes a profound difference to the sound. If I go over here and see the notation for the major third based on the C here, you'll see that if I drop half a tone, we get this symbol applied, which is called a flat symbol. In other words, this is the notation to show that that has been reduced by half a tone. So let's play it. And again. Now we'll investigate the intervals based on D. Let's just recap what we did on C. That's a major third interval. And when we drop this note of fret, we'll get a minor third interval. Look at the relationship between this note on the A string and this note on the D string, the 4th string. So let's take this one up to D and keep the relationship the same, because we got to have a note on D and a note on F. That's a minor third because it's the same shape as the C minor third we looked at before. What happens if I raise this? Of course, it's a major third interval. In this case, raising from F to this by a fret from there to there is raising the F a semitone. It's given this symbol, which is sharp, so the F is raised. How does it sound? Look, you can associate the sound with the score. Right, before we continue, I just want to mention something about the open string tuning, standard tuning of the guitar. It's a bit weird in one part. So let's start with the E string here, notated there. Then we take the A string here, notated there. And then the D string here, notated there. And then finally the D and the G. All those have the same interval between them, E, F, G, A. That's 4 letter names, A, B, C, D, D, E, F, G. They're actually perfect fourths, which we'll look at later. However, when we get to the G string and B string, there are only 3 letter names. It's actually a major third interval. Then we go from B to E. We get back to being a perfect fourth. So you could imagine that patterns will be consistent between these pairs of strings. Those between E and A and D, D and G. But there'll be an inconsistency between G and B. Then we'll return to consistency between B and E. So this G to B string crossing can cause you a few mental problems, which we'll look at as we go through bit by bit. So now we're starting back on the 5th string here, so that's C on the 5th string. I think you must be getting used to where C is now. So it's 3rd fret of the 5th string, and we have E, which is on the 4th string on the 2nd fret. So we played that before. Now I'll move up with the next interval, which is based on the D here, and D, E, F. So this is where D is on the 5th string. It's on the 5th fret of the 5th string. That's where I'm playing it anyway. And F is on the 3rd fret of the 4th string. D, F. So that sounds like then if we go to the next interval, which is based on E, what I've done there is I've just taken the D and moved it up a tone, and this will follow behind. So the D will go to E and the F will go to G, which is the red dots here. So I'm sliding from like that. Those are all minors sliding around. So I'll go from D minor. So the patterns remain the same on the frets. I've put some alternative fingering here, which is between E on the 4th string and an open G, if you want to get a nicer sound. But I'm interested in patterns here at the moment. So if we move up to the next interval based on F, I'm playing F, 3rd fret of the 4th string. I'm playing A on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So look at the shape and look at the notation. F, A. So we notice that there's only 1 fret difference between this interval, for this interval, the same as the first one on C. So we got major, minor, minor, major. Then if we go up to G major, as you'd expect, I've taken the F and just moved it up a tone. So I've displaced the pattern by a whole tone. So we've got G to B. So here's F, F to A, G to B. It's the same major third. Now, when we take the next interval based on A, previously our minor intervals were 2 frets apart. But as we cross that strings 3 and 2, we come into that region, the minor interval is just 1 fret apart. So that's a minor interval, and instead of being 2 frets apart, it's 1. And the major interval based on A means I sharpen the C. So I'm playing this one, then now I'm playing that one. So the pattern of the major third on between these two strings is that there are no adjacent frets. Okay, that's the one based on B minor. So take that one out, and you see we've just slit the pattern up. That's B on the 3rd string, 4th fret. D on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. I'm going to continue now and base the next interval on C, and I'm going to take B and just slide it up 1 fret like that. So here's C. So to take the next note, which is E, I'm going to play E on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. So there's the C, there's the E. And if I want to make that into a minor triad, a C minor triad, you've guessed it, I would lower the E. So on those 2 strings, major, minor. Now when we go to the top 2 strings, because we've got this 4th tuning of a 4th apart back, the minor interval D to F is now 2 frets apart. So that's the D, 3rd fret 2nd string, F, 1st fret 1st string. And that's part of, those of you that play a bit of guitar, that's the top part of D minor. So to recap here, this tuning of the guitar would, if it was all equal, perfect fourths between each string, that would be kind of nice because we'd get really consistent patterns. But we don't have that. We have a third between the G and the B. So we have the first interval is major based on C. There's the pattern for D. There's the pattern for E, shifted up a tone. There's the pattern for F. A major, shift up a tone to G major. Cross strings now, where the tuning's not consistent. And now we have a minor triad based on A to C. And I said that to make that major. So between these two strings, a major third would be on adjacent frets. So I now took this one, moved it up a tone to B and D. Then I took the C on the 5th fret of the 3rd string and played the E on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. Adjacent frets, major 3rd. And finally we take the top 2 strings, we play the D and on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and F on the 1st fret of the 1st string. So it's nice to practice these, if you can, just these intervals, to get the feel of the sound. Well, that concludes the part on third intervals, the intervals of a third. The next part is triads.